Hello, dear ones. Father Peter John coming to you from All Saints Orthodox Church in Bloomington, Indiana. Christ is in our midst. Today we're talking about step number 25 on the ladder of divine ascent. The title of that chapter is on humility. Here's what St. John says. He says, "The subject sets before us a touchstone, a treasury preserved in earthen vessels, that is to say, in our bodies. And it is of a quality that baffles all description. This treasure has an inscription which is incomprehensible because it comes from above. And those who try to explain it with words give themselves great and endless trouble. And the inscription reads thus: Holy Humility." St. John goes on to interview all of these different holy monks and to ask them, what is humility? And he lists all of their answers, and they're all good answers, but he's not satisfied that any of these answers are able to really capture the essence of humility. So he decides to take a stab at it himself. Here's what he says. He says, "Humility is a nameless grace in the soul. Its name is known only to those who have learned it by experience. It is unspeakable wealth, a name and gift from God. For it is said, 'Learn not from an angel, nor from man, nor from a book, but from me,' that is, from my indwelling, from my illumination and action in you. For I am meek and humble in heart, and in thought, and in spirit, and your souls shall find rest from conflicts and relief from thoughts." So says St. John about humility. So humility, we talked in a previous video about how its root word is humus, which is earth or dirt, right? Dust. From the dust we came, to the dust we shall return. Humility at its core is about remembering that we were formed by God from the dust of the earth and given form by him, created in his image and likeness, life was breathed into us, and that the only thing that sustains us is God. He holds us together. He keeps us alive, and remembering that he is God, that we are not, that he is in charge, that we are his servants, or the Greek word is actually slave, that we choose to be enslaved to him when we become a Christian. And he is the one who is saving us. All of this, remembering all of this, is at the heart of humility. St. John goes on to say, the first property of humility is the acceptance of indignity with the greatest pleasure. We've heard these types of things from him before. The acceptance of indignity with the greatest pleasure. Secondly, he says, the loss of all bad temper. That if we're a humble person, we will not have a bad temper. It'll be gone. Third, he says that we have to distrust our own good qualities and have a constant desire to learn. We even see this in St. John's own work, The Ladder of Divine Ascent, where he's always going to others, seeking to learn from them about their experience, about their knowledge of God. And even though he's this spiritual giant, and we see him right here holding his ladder, even though he's this spiritual giant, that he's constantly looking for others to guide and lead him based on what they've experienced of God and what they have seen and what they have learned. He's always open to learn. He says, in union with humility, it is impossible that there should be any appearance of hatred or any kind of dispute or even a sniff of disobedience. He says the one exception to this might be that if the faith is being called into question, then there might need to be some dispute or disobedience, such as we see in the history of the councils of the church, etc. Finally, he says, repentance raises the fallen, mourning knocks at the gate of heaven, and holy humility opens it. That's beautiful. Humility opens the gates of heaven. So may God grant us to come to know more of what humility is by experience, by obedience, by following Christ, and always being open to learn from others in the faith, and not relying heavily upon our own knowledge, our own experience, but more seeking with obedience that true faith and experience of Christ. Christ is in our midst. He is and ever shall be.